As the field is rolling here on the front straightaway.
And you can see the Canadian cars making their way around. So perhaps we'll use this opportunity just to, if we can, to go through the grid, perhaps.
Yeah, the starting order for the M-Zone RCC. Gavin Sanders starts on pole. Jake Cowden, Kenny Reedman, Owen Clark, Connor Bell, Nick Rusakov, and Stephen Chen. That's your top 7. Then it's Tim Sanderson, Robert Burgess, Peter Hansen, Mark Boyd, and Chris Stiles will round out the field of the M-Zone RCC.
And there we have it, the Americans and the Canadians in the Blue Marble Radical Cup field going behind the second pace car. It will be John Field, the former American Le Mans Series, who leads from the pole along. Well, it was going to be alongside. It will be a single file start, I believe. So behind him will be Indy Al Miller in the 500 machine. Then it is back to our fastest of the Pro 1500s. An impressive job yesterday for Danny Dashelski from Wayne Williams, who also performed well in the Platinum class. Starting 5th was Nick Persing, who will be hopeful to get past Dashelski and increase his lead in the Pro 1500 championship. Robert Soroka, looking to do the business on the home soil, will start from 6th. Kevin Poitras, another Canadian in the field from 7th place. Louis Schreiber, always one to watch in the 111 from position 8. Aurora Strauss, another one to keep an eye on. She'll start from car 17 from P9. And behind her, Greg Gorski, teammate for One Motorsports in the 24 machine. Then we're back to the hometown hero, Austin Riley, car number 20. And we're looking to see how he goes in this one. Start from position 11. Mike Anzaldi, Robert Cipriani Dietrich, who was our pole sitter in the 1340s, Seth Bacon, Jace Bacon. And I think we're about to take a start here for the Canadian Series.
Pace car still on track, so the car's still working to get some heat in those Michelin tires, the wet weather Michelin tires. As you can see, a dry line is almost even starting to form off of turn number 11.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that gives me time to just finish up. We've got Jace Bacon back in 16th on the grid. He, of course, had that moment in qualifying to bring out the red flag alongside Ken Savage. Then it's Scott Wagner in and Jack Yang, Arul Venkatesh, Hugh Leahy, another Canadian, and Richard Jarosha. So 33 cars in this combined field. Plenty of action to come here.
And action will be underlined for sure because of the changing conditions, and that is going to be the thing. Is it's not coming down right now. The rain is not coming down, but the track is wet, so the track will be slippery. And this is the first opportunity of the weekend for these drivers to be in a wet weather situation. We knew the weather was threatening all weekend long, but this is their first opportunity to see what this track is like under wet conditions.
And every driver in this field, not to mention all the crew chiefs, all the coaches, no one likes these conditions. They either want it to be wet, raining hard, so the track is consistent over the race and each corner, or they want it to be dry. These conditions are going to be tough because really, once we go green, every time we go into a corner, those drivers are going to have to test the pedal, see how much grip they have underneath them as they hit their braking zones, and then apply the throttle. But
and not to mention too, as the track starts to dry, if we do stay away from any more precipitation, the track will dry, and the Michelin rain tires a softer compound as the Hankook rain tires, so it's meant to stick to the track under a very wet condition. So once you start getting that dry line, you'll watch the drivers will skirt off and actually look for some wet to try and cool off those tires, or else you start seeing rubber passing you down the straightaway.
Well, that could be interesting too if those tires burn up a bit quicker than the Hankooks. Who knows what's going to happen? We've never raced both series together on different compound tires. We'll see how they all interact around the streets of Toronto. It's certainly going to be some action, and I can hear the tempo rise, and we're actually following the Blue Marble cars as they come around, the safety cars in, so I suspect the start has already taken place as we've almost got a spin there. The Canadians should be out in front, and indeed they are going into turn 1 and already side-by-side action.
Jake Cowden on the inside of your pole sitter, but it's Gavin Sanders who's going to lead him out of turn number 2 and down the straightaway on Lakeshore for the first time, as you can still see a haze of vapor coming up behind these Radical cars as they make their way down the straightaway.
Absolutely, and it'll be interesting to see what's happening back in the Blue Marble Radical Cup as well, as we come down a clean start for the Canadians so far. Everyone tiptoeing around this racetrack as they find out the grip level.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is you want to go in there and ease it in there the first time as you see the Blue Marble Cup cars
so it's
come
John
through.
Field, and he's made a little mistake, but Indy Al Miller had nowhere to go. Louis Schreiber looking to go around the outside. A little bit of a hip and shoulder there as well for Wayne Williams. You can see how quickly the Platinum Class cars in the Blue Marble Radical Cup are closing in on the back markers of the Canadian field, and they're going to have some work to do as they carve their way up through the 13 Canadians.
And you're not going to see positions change based on track time speeds. It's going to be mistakes. You take advantage of the mistake, the misstep of the driver in front of you. That's what happens in wet conditions, because one small mistake can just be exponentially steamrolled and turn into a huge problem when there's concrete on both sides.
Well, we saw that yesterday in qualifying, where one car's mistake ended up in a parking lot out of turn 8 and then down in turn 1 as well. And you can see now that it looks like Sanders was doing a good job there. Tim Sanderson going through screen in that stunning sort of homage to the Martini livery. But so far so good. All of the front runners have got away well.
Yeah, Sanders still leading Jake Cowden in the M Zone RCC. So that's the first group of cars you see on the track as we go through some of the rest of the field.
Kenny Reedman in third place. Strong start for him.
Absolutely, in the 42, Jake Cowden sandwiched in there too. But you take a look through some of the other classes, the Pro 1500s. Nick Persing is leading Danny Duchelski in the 88. So that's your top 2 of the Pro 1500s. And then you get back to the Platinum class. Indy Al Miller in the 500 continues to lead John Field.
Crucially, I think Indy Al Miller, he's got ahead of John Field. So John Field's made a mistake. And Wayne Williams looks right in the thick of it as well. I think Williams has actually got track position now over Field. So the American Le Mans star has fallen back from his pole sitting pace, and someone's gone straight on into the runoff. I think that was Indy Al Miller. Indeed it is. So the 37 of John Field. Miller with a big lockup past the Smart Stop sign there.
That's turn number 8, and that was a calamity corner yesterday during qualifying and practice as well. Several drivers getting caught out by the rough conditions in the braking zone in turn number 8, and it looks like it caught out your leader in the Platinum class.
So Wayne Williams, who goes through screen there, loves these conditions. He's absolutely loving it. The former sprint car star has found himself leading this motor race in his 4th ever Blue Marble Radical Cup Series round.
And we talked about that a little bit yesterday during the extended practice session. He had an hour on track, completely dry conditions, but talked about Williams and how he likes to hang out the back end of the race car. That's what he's comfortable with, driving dirt, driving sprint cars. And now that's exactly what these drivers are doing here in these conditions to start this 30-minute time race.
And another big moment there. That was one of the Platinum class cars, I think, Kevin Poitras, getting it all crossed up. So the horsepower, as we've got a caution now. We haven't seen on screen what that is for, but it certainly looks like young Aurora Strauss, she's come up through the field as well. And indeed, she's 4th in Pro 1500. So there we are, some of the front runners in the Canadian Cup coming through screen.
See the reason for this full course caution here with 27 minutes, almost 28 minutes left to go in this 30-minute timed race.
Gavin Sanders still in the lead from Jake Cowden. Kenny Reedman 3rd, Connor Bell, Owen Clark. So that's the top 5 in the M Zone Radical Cup Canada. As the safety car does come out, hasn't picked up the leader just yet. Greg Gorski going through screen, so he's still surviving out there in these treacherous conditions.
Treacherous to be sure, but again, if you look at that outside groove, it is starting to dry up, but then they head down the Lakeshore straightaway, and you can see that cloud of vapor being kicked up. And here in the braking in turn number 1, a sheen across the track, so that gives you an idea of just how wet it's
not only a sheen, but of course all those wonderfully colored stripes across the track. And I think, typical street circuit, you've got other things to deal with. You don't usually have so much paint on the racing surface. Obviously a lot of patches as well and all sorts of things. So the safety car waving the field through, just trying to pick up the leader here. Wayne Williams is still in command of the Platinum class from John Field. Kevin Poitras has rocketed up. He's capitalized on a couple of little mistakes from Louis Schreiber and India Miller in particular. All the runners still circulating in Platinum. In Pro 1500, it's Dushelski who has converted the pole position from Robert Soroka, who flies the Canadian flag on his end plates and on the rear wing. Nick Persing sits third now. Crucial for Dushelski, who's trying to catch up in the points, as we have the number 3 of Seth Bacon, it appears, coming out of one of the runoff areas, and he looks like he's got a little bit of damage on the front of that number 3.
And I think this is the reason for the full course caution. That is in turn number 3. Seth Bacon is several laps down to your race leader, so he's obviously spent some time in the tire wall in turn number 3. So overcooked it under braking, and that is the reason for the full course caution. So Seth Bacon in the number 3, who had a couple of innocent spins yesterday, now sees that 3 car with some damage to the nose. Looks to be just fiberglass at this point.
I tell you what, the Crown Concepts boys getting a full workout. Last night they were repairing Seth's son Jace's car. Did a great job to get that back on track for today. Unfortunately, just in the wars, 2 competitors, father and son. Great to see them out here and enjoying their motorsport together, and that's what Radical Racing is all about. But as you can see, the Honda safety car just circulating at the moment.
So Gavin Sanders still the leader overall. So he'll be picked up by the pace car, and with Jake Cowden just in behind. But you'll see this will bunch the field. Now, when we go back to green, there's not going to be the breaks in different classes. There will be one pace car for the entire train, and all 33 cars will go back to green.
You can see how close Wayne Williams now is to the front of the entire field. Williams, pretty newcomer to Radical Cup racing. He's got a very experienced driver behind him in John Field. John Field, of course, all the experience in the world in terms of carving his way up through slower cars from his American Le Mans Series days. And this gives Field a great opportunity to perhaps eclipse Wayne Williams, who I must say is just an absolute standout in these tough conditions. We mentioned before the Pro 1500s, Dushelski crucially in front with a buffer, if you like, in terms of Robert Soroka to Nick Persing. And Nick is leading the championship at the moment. But, of course, he'll gain about 10 points, or lose 10 points to Danny Dushelski, rather. That will be the sort of net effect. And I think if Dushelski can stay in the P1 position with Soroka between him and his nearest championship rival, that'll put him in the box seat to reclaim the lead in the Pro 1500 Championship. Ken Savage also will be looking to extend his lead in Pro 1340. So lots of championship implications. Of course, it is a race of survival here. This is just one round of numerous for the Blue Marble Radical Cup, and just one of a number of races as well for the Radical Cup Canada. So drivers have to think a little bit more beyond just the podium this afternoon.
It's the first of 3 races this weekend for the Radical Cup cars, and you're hearing us rifle off the different terms, the different classes that are on track all at the same time. If you're sitting in the grandstand, you can differentiate those different cars based on the stripe on the rear wing. So there's If there's red on the rear wing right by the end plates, that's a Pro 1500 car. If there's yellow on the rear wing, again, right beside the end plates, that is a Platinum car. So the car with the most horsepower out of any of the other Radicals on track. The M-Zone Radical Cup Canada with the blue on the rear wing, and the Pro 1340s from the Blue Marble Radical Cup North America with the green on the rear wing. So it gives you at least an idea of who is running where and which classes are in the mix.
Yes, indeed. And amazingly, through all that sort of chaos, if you like, certainly a fair bit of action, it looks like we've only lost Scott Wagner, or certainly he's 4 laps down, and then Seth Bacon in the number 3 that we saw reversing out of turn 3, the runoff there. So realistically, everyone has kept their calm in these trying conditions, and we've got, well, 31 cars back on track, or remaining on track, to hopefully provide a fair bit of entertainment with just over 20 minutes to go. It looks like the light is out on the safety car, so...
And this restart is going to be interesting. The initial start is one thing. Everybody knows they have to be careful going into turn number 1 for the first time. A restart, you have a little bit of confidence. You know what the track is like, and now you're all bunched together.
But what do they say? Yellows breed yellows. Hopefully we won't see that. They're getting ready. The field is pretty slow around that final corner, and we'll see what happens as we head down into turn 1.
Gavin Sanders lights the fuse in the 10, so he will be the first to hit the loud pedal and head down the front straightaway. Seeing green, we're back underway here in the Radical Cup at the
4
Honda
wide,
Indy Toronto.
5 wide. Definitely 5 wide there, not quite 6 wide. We'll see how that goes into turn 1. Usually it doesn't work well, but so far, everyone through clean. No, someone has had a spin. I think that's Poitras, who's been turned around, but it is a green flag. There was only one car, I think, involved in that one.
Did he catch the wall, though? That's the big question. You saw him do a very hard right-hand turn after making contact with another car. We have a change at the front. Jake Cowden taking over top spot in the M-Zone Radical Cup Canada. Gavin Sanders has slotted into second.
Wow, this is wild stuff around the tight streets of Toronto. 31 Radical sports cars trying to carve their way around, deal with the traffic. John Field in the mix there. They're all tiptoeing around. You can see the precipitation on the TV screens. It is a tough day at the office for these guys. And around the outside goes the number 7.
Somebody got spun, and I didn't see who. It was just at the bottom of her camera shot, and it was moving through turn 5, headed towards turn number 6. So it's sort of in a black spot.
Someone there just in the corner of the screen too.
Off turn number 8, another spin.
Big slide from Greg Gorski. They're all struggling to get the power down. Of course, relatively diminutive, and it's Wayne Williams. So from second, of course, he was leading the race at some point. A little bit of damage too for the Louis Schreiber. The 111 has backed it into the fence. So all sorts of drama as these Platinum class cars are trying to carve their way up through the field. We wondered whether this would happen. Unfortunately, it has.
And Gavin Sanders has retaken the lead in the M-Zone RCC. Jake Cowden down to second. So John Field, your leader in the Platinum class. The Pro 1300s, Ken Savage, your points leader, back to the top spot there. And Robert Soroka in the Pro 1500s ahead of Nick Persing, with Daniel Deschelski in third in the 88. But they are so tight.
The single yellow, wave yellow there. So trying to keep as much green racing as possible, and that is Kevin Poitras, who's stranded. He's not on the racing line, but the trouble is in these conditions, you can so quickly still be collected.
He did make it quite a ways back around the track. Remember that happened in the exit of turn number 1, headed towards turn number 2. So he did manage to limp that car around about halfway, nearly getting to pit lane, but unfortunately stopped on track.
So close, the 15 there. And drivers almost finding the barriers. We could see Aurora Strauss, so the caution has come back out. Unfortunately, Kevin Poitras, what hard luck for him. A big lick at Canada Corner last time out, his first race in the Platinum class after stepping up from the 1340s. Long-time Radical competitor really now. He was looking for a big run in the North American Championship before COVID curtailed that. Back in the series, had a strong run in the 1340s at NOLA, stepped up to the Platinum class with a brand new car. As I say, hit the wall hard in Canada Corner, got a huge hand in that. It wasn't his fault. The team has worked tirelessly to get that car back out on track, and I wouldn't lay the blame really on that one. I think these conditions, look, it's so easy just to nudge someone in front, just unload those rear wheels, and of course the person in front's a passenger at that point. So,
well, we've seen how twitchy these cars are under acceleration, under braking as well, under these conditions, is that the drivers are always having to pay attention as to what the car is doing, and oftentimes the driver is catching up to try and correct what that car is doing. And if you're running side by side in close proximity with somebody else, it doesn't take long to make contact, and if it's a right front or a left front into a right rear or a left rear, then the car in front is going to go around in a hurry.
Yeah, and Nick Persing's doing a good job. I just saw him go through screen, so we'll try and pick up where young Nick is.
Yeah, second in class at this point.
Yeah, so he's managed to make a couple of moves. Now, interestingly, he's second in class because something happened to Dashelsky in all of that chaos. We didn't pick that up before the full course caution. So Danny Dashelsky was leading the class and is now in third.
Yeah, so he was marked as about 2.8 seconds behind the leader in Pro 1500, who is Robert Soroka, the Canadian, participating in the Blue Marble Radical Cup North America. And when we look at the M-Zone Radical Cup Canada, Gavin Sanders traded places with Jake Cowden, Kenny Reedman in third spot. Connor Bell and Owen Clark round out the top five.
What's amazing is Soroka in the 1500s now running 6th overall, Nick Persing 7th. So John Field might have had a bit of a mistake too, but already the S3s with the 1500cc engines and indeed those Platinum class cars, they've carved their way up to be 6th, 7th and 8th overall. I suspect Gavin Sanders, Jake Cowden and Kenny Reedman are about to have their mirrors full as well of some American drivers here. And I tell you what, I'd be upset if we didn't go back green with 15 minutes remaining. I think this is going to be a lot more action as well. Big shout out to the fans braving this weather out in the stands. It's not fun to have the rain jacket on because it's so humid here at the moment. You sort of get too hot with the rain jacket on, but of course stay slightly drier.
And just outside of our position here on the track, it looks like rain has started falling again. So it was looking good there for a little while that the rain was going to stop, at least no more precipitation, but it is coming down just a little bit. It's not a deluge, not by any means, but it sounds, according to the weather radar that we've been watching and everybody else has been watching, that's walking around the paddock, that's what everybody else was talking about. But it looks like it's going to be short-lived and not a lot of rain. So you shouldn't get a huge storm coming through. It should just be sort of this annoyance for a little while.
I think that the biggest challenge is just to try and work out the grip level with so many other competitors around you. A lot of drivers saying that whether you're online or offline, certainly in the dry, big difference, of course. That all sort of tends to switch around. Sometimes you'll see drivers doing what they would refer to in the business as more of a go-kart line, a bit of a rim shot to try and find grip off where the surface of the track has been rubbered in. And so you might see some interesting lines, particularly in some of the higher speed corners, the more open corners, as these drivers just try and carry a little bit more momentum around the outside.
But a lot of these corners here on this track specifically, because it is a street circuit, because there's walls on both sides, you don't really have the room, the opportunity to get offline to try and find grip elsewhere. So sometimes you just have to deal. I'm thinking as you pass through turn number 11 and the walls seem to squeeze in on you, you really have to follow that rubbered up line and just hope for the best.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly don't want to end up in the wall. And it looks like Seth Bacon is back out. So the Crown Concepts crew doing another tremendous job. He had some bodywork locking up that left front tyre after collecting something in the runoff area, and they've got that free. The number 3 is back out there. Looking at down the running order, and this is going to be a great opportunity for Greg Gorski as well to get himself on the Pro 1500 podium. He's only one position away from achieving that, and Gorski, one of the older guys in the field, if you like, though you wouldn't know it if you looked at him. He probably looks about 35, but he's pushing 50. He's been duking it up with the young guns, and really amazing to see his performance and his elevation. It just goes to show how good these cars are at crafting racing drivers. In fact, that's Radical's slogan, "We make races," and it's a fair call because so many guys start their racing careers, whether it's at the club level, at the country club down south of the border, or even at track days. You can, of course, drive a Radical because it's closed wheel at the track day. So very versatile car, relatively cheap racing car to get into, and just start to chip away, build up the skills, do some of the local CASC and BARC events, NASA and SCCA down in the US, and then step up to the National Series, whether that's the M-Zone Radical Cup Canada or the Blue Marble Radical Cup North America.
And then further your career from there. As we talked about, some drivers have come back to the Radicals, drivers like John Field, who have had success internationally. And if you look locally, Jonathan Woolridge, the Canadian driver who won the championship here in the M-Zone Radical Cup Canada. As a matter of fact, won every single race in 2022. And he's moved up into the LMP3 category and has started taking home checkered flags in that division as well. So it does really breed racers, teaches you racecraft, teaches you how to handle a high downforce car, because these cars do have a lot more downforce than, say, a typical sedan or a sports car that you would be running maybe at the club level before you get into something like this.
And speaking of having a go internationally, Austin Riley, Car 20, the Canadian young superstar who won the Blue Marble Radical Cup Series outright last year. He is going off to England to run at Silverstone in a couple of weeks' time. And then a number of these drivers will also be heading over to Portimao to take part in the Radical World Finals in front of an ELMS, that's the European Le Mans Series crowd, later this year as well. So plenty of opportunities to get behind the wheel, learn the craft, and then tick off the bucket list, whether that's here in Canada, in the USA. As the lights have come off, the safety car's in. We're about to go green once again here on the streets of Toronto. We'll see if they can finish off the remainder of this race under those green flag conditions. They come around pretty slowly again. John Field's ready to pounce. And here we go, the Blue Marble Radical Cup, the M-Zone Radical Cup Canada. It's green flag racing.
Just over 9 minutes left in this one. Once again, Jake Cowden goes to the inside as Gavin Sanders spreads out. We're 3 wide into corner number 1. Everybody stays off each other. We stay clean through the first turn.
Persing crucially in front of Soroka there. It was also John Field who was carving his way up through some of the Canadians. And the Rooster Tails are pretty strong there down the back straightaway.
A lot more than we saw in the early laps of this one, so the backstretch has picked up some moisture as Field dives to the inside. He's got the more powerful Platinum car. He's able to put that power down to the track and work his way up. 3rd overall right now on track, chasing Jake Cowden, who's just ahead, and Gavin Sanders in the 10, who leads the field.
Absolutely. Nick Persing still doing the job in the 1500 with Soroka, angling for a win on home soil here. On a big slide. Well, the screen has just cut. I think we got away with that, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was number 9.
Chris Stiles in the number 7, so that's a car formerly campaigned by Austin Riley last year, so it's a very, very good car. Chris Stiles just getting his feet wet in the Radical Cups this year.
Another big slide there as well. And a little bit of a hand gesture from, that was Indy Al Miller.
To Austin Riley, and Austin was way out on the outside, and it looked like Indy Al Miller missed his braking point and pushed the youngster even further out, almost into the tire wall.
And they're squeezing each other down into the turn one, and that's never a good sign. We'll see if they can get through 3 wide. They managed to make it. Good job, because they certainly pinched off the corner. It's getting pretty racy out there with 7 minutes remaining.
Kenny Reedman was the driver who was pinched off against the wall. He had to back out of it big time, and that's going to cost him several positions. Connor Bell in the 15, up inside the top 3 now, chasing Gavin Sanders and Jake Cowden in the M Zone Radical Cup
John
Canada.
Field up to 3rd overall now. So Field could take this, and we've got a local yellow, certainly. Just a local one. Hopefully we can just keep this green. Hoping we can not have to go full course caution yet again. This is getting so exciting up at the front with some of these cars carving their way through. You can see there Indy Al Miller, and then it was Wayne Williams who led the Platinum class earlier on. Bit of debris out on the circuit as well.
And you can see some of these concrete patches. So that's asphalt and concrete. Concrete generally makes up the apex of these corners, sometimes under braking as well. But it's those concrete patches that are the most slippery.
You can see the tyre bundles have actually been moved a substantial amount out of the exit of the corner. So a local yellow in there, but we didn't see a car. So hopefully that's got going again. Wayne Williams having a look once again at the back of the 500 machine of Indy Al Miller, side by side, further back in the field. It's multi-class racing, and they're all sliding around. Dushelski having a big moment as he tries to claw his way back onto the gearbox of Nick Persing, and Dushelski has got ahead of Jake Cowden. Rather, it's Robert Soroka, and a little bit more debris there being flicked up by some of these cars as they head down into turn 3.
So at the stripe the last time by, Persing was leading Dushelski and Robert Soroka in the Pro 1500 class in the M Zone Radical Cup Canada. Sanders, Cowden, and Connor Bell, that's your top 3. Cowden just turned his quickest lap of the race. The Platinum field is John Field, Indy Al Miller, and Wayne Williams has recovered up to 3rd spot. And in the Pro 1340, Ken Savage, Robert Cipriani, and Jace Bacon, your top 3.
Well, unfortunately, it looks like we saw a flash of full course caution, but I haven't seen it stay up on screen. Doesn't look like we've got that at the moment. Certainly, yeah, maybe it is. Just the field being neutralized once again.
Yeah, it looks like there is a full course caution at this point, looking for flags around the track to give us an indication of if that is in fact the case. Yeah, it is. Full course yellow. The light has been illuminated. 4.5 minutes left. I'm not sure if this is for the tire wall that has come askew in the exit of turn number 8, or if there's another issue around the track.
So the running order at the moment in the M Zone Radical Cup, it's Gavin Sanders from Jake Cowden, and then Connor Bell. In the Platinum class, it's John Field who leads. And then we have to go all the way back to Indy Al Miller, who's clawed his way back into 2nd place from Wayne Williams. In the Pro 1500s, Persing is doing the business from Danny Dushelski. That has big implications. Persing will love that, extending his lead in the points if this remains, as I suspect it will, with only a few minutes to go. And then Robert Soroka is looking for a podium on home soil. In Pro 1340, Ken Savage has done a great job, as we can see a car buried down just to the left there, bottom left of the screen, buried down in turn 3. But, yeah, Ken Savage looks like he's done a solid job.
Now, we have no indication of who that car is down in turn number 3. All we can see is a wingtip, and we can tell you it's red on the rear wing, which would indicate Pro 1500 car, but nothing to tell us who that driver might be. It's on the outside of turn number 3, and it looks like it might be into the concrete portion of the wall, which is never good news.
No, and Savage doing a really solid job. He got up to 11th overall. Wow, in a Pro 1340 car. Robert Cipriani Dietrich has survived, if you like, second in Pro 1340 at the moment. And then Jace Bacon is on for a podium there. So the crew's out trying to assess what to do here. It'd be lovely to get perhaps a green flag finish. No, the race directors will be working up in race control to try and achieve that. The action and the excitement certainly been tremendous when we've had green flag racing, and I think given the conditions, it's been a pretty good race as well.
Yeah, I think it has, and for the most part, everybody's been minding their P's and Q's and trying to keep off each other, but we are going to see the white flag as the field moves past the flag stand this time around, so that'll indicate this one should end under caution as the cleanup continues in turn number 8. So it's a little bit disappointing for the drivers who feel they have a little bit more left in the tank, but there is another opportunity to strike gold later on today. Congratulations. As long as they finish, congratulations to the class leaders as they sit right now. But yeah, you're right. We talked about the unknowns, and there was the track surface, the conditions that was going to make this race very difficult, and it proved to be difficult for some drivers. And how about the 1340s? So the cars with some of the least horsepower ended up finding their way to the front of the field, just able to get that horsepower down to the ground. It doesn't matter if you have a big engine when in conditions like this, as they call it, rain is the ultimate equalizer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was pretty even throughout the field. I got to say, John Field, though, stellar when you think about how far he started back, carved his way up through the 13, or carved his way up through 10 M-Zone Radical Cup cars to be third on the racetrack. And I think he was certainly looking pretty strong to see if he could get right to the front of this field. Of course, that doesn't mean anything. The two series running separate in terms of points and all the rest. So perhaps a few bragging rights to cross the checkered flag or checkered line first. But that's not what this racing's about. Each class is equal, and the winners in each, of course, fighting for their own championships, and for that matter in the two series as well. So some strong performances today. Gavin Sanders will be thrilled to take the win, I'm sure. Big moment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big moment. And remember, last year he campaigned here in the Sports Car Championship Canada, picking up a win in a Mercedes AMG. So this very much a different kind of vehicle. But Gavin Sanders running the full season in the M-Zone Radical Cup Canada, whereas that was just a one-off trial in the Sports Car Championship Canada after moving up from the Nissan Sentra Cup. And now Sanders finding a very comfortable home in the Radicals after sweeping a U.S. race earlier on this year, and then finishing twice on the podium at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. And it looks like he'll visit the podium once again here behind the wheel of the number 10.
Yeah, it's these drivers, apart from, of course, if you're leading your class, everyone else is just vying to go racing. You know, it's the worst thing in the world to realize you're on the final tour. There is no chance that you can do anything but just receive the checker flag. You've been so gung-ho, so impatient, if you like, to go racing. But there we are. Across the stripe they go. And congratulations again to Gavin Sanders. In the Platinum class, it is John Field who'll take the win from Indy Al Miller and Wayne Williams. And a strong result after a spin for Kevin Poitras, who finishes fourth in that class. In Pro 1500, Nick Persing has done the job, and fourth overall. Wow, amazing that he could carve his way up through the pack. Danny Dashelski in second for Pro 1500. Robert Soroka third. He was finished seventh overall. And then we're back to the Pro 1340s, and it was Ken Savage who took the win from Robert Cipriani Dietrich, who just can't find a break. He's been so quick, that young gun, but just can't seem to convert the pole positions into the wins. And Jace Bacon will pick up another podium, so a strong day for him after finding the wall yesterday in qualifying.
big damage to that car yesterday. The crew worked very, very hard overnight to get that car repaired and back on track here today. And Jace Bacon thanks them with a podium finish here. Third place, as you see the rest of the top 20 coming up on the screen. Ken Savage, there's Cindy L. Miller. Back in 12th, a little bit of a surprise after he had a good start and unfortunately ran into issues midway through.
Yeah, no, it's a great result with Wayne Williams. He was really fighting it up, in fact, ahead of Indy L. Miller at one point. Wayne really strong in these conditions. Austin Riley, I think surviving was here the aim of the game for him. He's got, some of these guys have got a lot to lose, whether it's just they're tight on the budget or they are chasing a championship. It really is a case of just picking off what you can, bagging the points that you can, living to fight another day. We're going to go racing here this afternoon once again. I'm going to go get over to the podium. Can't wait to celebrate for the first time here at the Honda Indy Toronto. So I'm going to leave you to it, mate, and we'll go down and spray some champagne.
And that second race, of course, coming up at 5:30 this afternoon. That's when the green flag flies.
And Dave, you may see very different